The boy stood at the edge of the parking lot like a shadow that had learned how to breathe, thin arms wrapped around a grease-stained backpack, eyes fixed on a row of motorcycles that gleamed under the dying afternoon sun. He was 13 years old, hungry in a way that went deeper than his stomach, and brave in a way that only comes when you have nowhere left to go. Every step he took toward the biker club felt like a coin tossed into the air, because he knew that whatever happened next could either break him for good or finally give him a place to belong. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one small act can change a life forever, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this connect hearts across the world. His name was Eli Carter, and the streets had taught him lessons no child should ever have to learn. He knew how to sleep with one eye open, how to judge footsteps by sound alone, how to make a single slice of bread last an entire day. His mother had disappeared into addiction 2 years earlier, his father into silence long before that. Foster homes had come and gone like bad weather, and the last one had ended with a locked door and his backpack thrown onto the porch. Since then, the city had been his roof, the cold concrete his bed, and hope something he carried quietly so no one could steal it. The biker club sat inside an old warehouse at the edge of town, the kind of place adults warned kids to avoid. Heavy steel doors, skull decals, engines roaring like distant thunder. To Eli, it looked like a fortress. Not a safe one, but a strong one. He had watched them for weeks from behind a chain-link fence, memorizing routines, noticing how the bikes were treated with a care he had never seen given to people. He knew machines. They were honest. If something was broken, it showed you. If you fixed it right, it stayed fixed. That afternoon, one of the bikes refused to start. Eli noticed it instantly, the uneven cough of the engine, the way the owner kicked the stand in frustration. Without really deciding to, he walked forward. His shoes were worn thin, his hands shaking, but his voice came out steady enough to ask a simple question. If he fixed the bike, could they keep him? Not forever. Just for a while. The men looked at him the way adults often look at homeless kids, with suspicion mixed with discomfort. The club leader, a broad-shouldered man named Marcus Hale, had seen a lot in his life. He had buried friends, made mistakes, survived things that should have killed him. He saw the hunger in Eli's eyes and recognized it because he had once worn it himself. Still, rules were rules, and a kid wandering into a biker club was trouble waiting to happen. They didn't throw him out, though. They gave him 48 hours. 48 hours was both nothing and everything. Eli slept that night behind the warehouse, curled up near a vent that leaked warm air. He didn't really sleep. He thought about the bike, replayed the sound of the engine in his head, traced imaginary wires with his fingers. In the morning, Marcus let him inside under watchful eyes. The smell of oil and metal wrapped around Eli like a familiar blanket. He went to work quietly, hands moving with confidence that surprised everyone watching. He cleaned the carburetor with care, adjusted the fuel line, tightened bolts that had been ignored for too long. His fingers were nicked and scarred from past fixes done in alleyways and abandoned lots. He worked slowly, methodically, as if the bike were something alive that deserved respect. When the engine finally roared back to life, the sound filled the warehouse, deep and steady. It wasn't just fixed. It was better. Word spread through the club quickly. Another bike needed attention. Then another. Eli didn't ask for food, but someone slid a sandwich across the table anyway. He ate it like it might disappear if he looked away. No one said much. The clock kept ticking. During those 2 days, the men began to notice things. Eli always cleaned up after himself. He thanked people with his eyes more than his words. When he slept, it was light and tense, like a cat ready to bolt. He flinched at raised voices. He smiled when engines purred smoothly under his hands. He belonged in that space in a way that felt unexpected and undeniable. Marcus watched all of this with a growing weight in his chest. He told himself they were a club, not a charity. He told himself the world was full of kids like Eli, and saving one wouldn't fix everything. But he also knew that sometimes life puts a choice in front of you not to change the world, but to change one world. 48 hours came and went, and no one mentioned the deadline. Trouble arrived on the third day in the form of social services. Someone had reported a child on the property. Clipboards appeared, questions were asked, and suddenly Eli was standing very still, staring at the floor, waiting for the door to close on him again. He had seen this ending before. Marcus surprised everyone, including himself, by stepping forward. He spoke calmly, explaining that the boy had skills, that he was supervised, that they were working on something more permanent. It wasn't a lie, not exactly. It was a promise still forming. The process wasn't easy. There were forms, inspections, arguments, and sleepless nights. The club cleaned up the warehouse, set aside a room, found a retired member willing to become a temporary guardian. Eli attended school during the day and worked on bikes in the afternoons. He struggled at first, overwhelmed by classrooms and homework, by the simple idea that someone expected him to show up tomorrow. He failed a math test and cried in the bathroom, ashamed of tears he thought he had outgrown. Slowly, things changed. His shoulders relaxed. He gained weight. His grades improved. The club taught him discipline without cruelty, loyalty without conditions. Marcus taught him that strength wasn't about how hard you could hit, but how steady you could stand. Eli learned that not every adult leaves, that some promises are kept quietly, without applause. Years passed like chapters turning. The boy who once slept behind a warehouse grew into a young man with grease under his nails and confidence in his stride. He earned certifications, opened a small repair shop with the club's backing, and took in apprentices who reminded him of himself. On the wall hung a photo of an old motorcycle, the first one he had fixed, a reminder of the moment everything changed. If this story has reached something tender inside you, if it has reminded you that hope can appear in the most unlikely places, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this travel further and touch more hearts. Before the ending, please comment one word that describes how this story made you feel, because your words matter more than you know. Eli never forgot the question he asked that first day, or the fear that came with it. He carried it with him as a reminder that courage doesn't always look loud or fearless. Sometimes it looks like a hungry kid walking toward a place everyone told him to avoid, believing that his hands were worth more than his past. And somewhere inside an old warehouse, among the sound of engines and second chances, a life was rebuilt one careful turn at a time.